Hello and welcome to Coffee with Dr. Carla. I'm Dr. Carla. This is Lori Smith.
Hello.
And we're so glad that you're here with us. Our goal today is to talk about some mental health related issues and hopefully start to end some of the stigma around them. And right before we just started the camera, we were talking about teens and mental illness. And I said, it's hormones a go-go with mental illness. And that at the end of the day, that's it. Like, I know that a conversation I have had, you know, as I'm contemplating this, and then other clients or friends have been contemplating, is what's going on with this child of mine who is a teenager, normal teenager thing, or is there something else going on? Like this craziness that comes with all the hormones flowing, is that typical or should I be worried? Right?
Right.
And so sometimes it's really hard to distinguish between the two.
And sometimes you can't.
Sometimes
Sometimes you
you
can't.
absolutely
It,
can't, right?
and sometimes it's both, right?
Yeah,
Because it's both. I mean,
right.
it just, yeah, that's, yeah, I've had countless hours involved in those kinds of conversations, um, professionally and personally.
And then because, and again, so professionally, how did we fail our child? Because we should know,
Right,
right?
right,
So, and then personally, as a mom, what the heck did I do wrong? Did I make this happen?
right.
Right? Like all that shame
Well,
that goes with some of those
and the
things, right?
system work, you know, this our field works to blame moms and dads, right? Moms especially, but
Yeah.
parents, right?
This has to be
Right.
happening for some
Your
reason.
parenting
Right.
is
Right.
wrong. If you were better disciplined, I mean, I remember being um, in a hospital, and a, a security guard, God bless her soul, came in and said, my child is a good kid, and they would never behave this way, and I would never let this happen. And I like to think of myself as a peaceful person. I'm a person of faith. I like to think of myself as, being loving.
Yes.
That was not what was engendered in me. And I thought, there's a uniform and it's a hospital. Yeah, if I get arrested, I lose the job. It just,
And sadly, I too can tell you similar
yep,
stories where,
yep,
people think they're
yes,
speaking a truth
right.
and pointing a finger, and it just exasperates the situation,
Lots of
right?
judgy McJudgerton, right?
Well, and sadly, then when you potentially might need some of these people,
Right.
you're not going to go there because there's
No,
no trust
no,
because you have
right,
enough experience where they've um, judged you.
right.
And why would I ask somebody who's going to judge me to come and help me?
And we're mental health
And
professionals.
we're
We
mental
know
health
we
professionals.
know how to navigate a system, right?
And even before I was a mental health professional, I was a special education professional.
Right,
So, like,
right.
right.
So I often think about those parents who aren't mental health professionals, who really are scared, and they come to us, not you and me, because we would not say that, and
No,
I know that,
come
um,
to the system.
come to the system and really vulnerable and very terrified, and the system judges them, and they have to do that dual speak, right? I need this help. I'm going to internalize and bury what I really want to say and do, because this is the key to getting my kid help. And so, you know, that is why I've worked, I know you've worked, and we've worked individually and at an advocacy level to help change some of the systems.
Yeah,
Um, and that's with helping professionals. And that level of judgment, as I know is also in family, right?
sure.
So that there are the well-meaning family members who will tell you what are free to tell you what you're doing wrong in your parenting and how they would do it better and if you would change this.
if that
the
child lived
kid,
with me, this would
right, they
never
would never
happen.
happen. I wouldn't let it happen.
And that's when I'm like, oh, I could pack their
Oh yeah,
bags.
yes, there were many,
They're
yeah,
coming to visit.
right. And I mean, I remember a moment when a neighbor told me, well, if this were my kid, they would never do it. And I stepped back and watched an exchange between my kid and them. And they turned to me and said, oh my God, I didn't realize how hard this was. And I just bit my tongue and I said, I just prayed that that would help them develop some compassion, right?
Yeah, I mean, at least they recognize that glimpse, right?
Yes, they
Because
did.
there's some people who
Never
would
do.
just then would continue to blame that child.
Correct.
You
And
bad boy, you bad
right,
girl, you're so naughty. Why don't
right,
you? Right,
right.
right, yeah.
You know, you're aberrant or evil or whatever. And as we know, mental illness, um, the heavy hitting mental illnesses in particular, but all mental illness, carries with it some pretty noxious symptoms around sexuality, around, things like stealing, things like lying.
All those really high risk impulsive
Right,
behaviors
right,
that, again, your typical, because I don't want to go normal, but your typical teen will also engage in a lot of these as they're trying to discover who they are.
right,
But if you know, if these behaviors stayed in much more of the typical range, while they may be hard, it would be a blessing because usually whatever a typical teen
right.
would do gets amplified, and then that's more likely what
Correct.
that teen with mental
And
illness
and
is
you can
doing.
have a
Yeah.
conversation, right? You can,
Usually with the typical child.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, they may react and
Right.
act out and resist, but most times they can come back and have a conversation and can keep a limit, right? And so here becomes the challenge with that. How do I discipline this? Do I let it go? Do I set a limit? Do I give a consequence? All of those kind of things that, yes, set a limit, yes, have a consequence because you're still teaching life lessons,
Right.
but learn where, but then there's the really learning on the fly challenge of when do I give some latitude for the child who's ill that I might, and not even not might not, that I won't with another child,
Sure.
right? I mean, something as simple as, you know, I know that when kids are hungry, it's harder for them to be balanced and
Sure.
be in wise mind. And so I would not typically, um, and as a matter of pride, would typically not stop to get kids McDonald's or something because I'm hungry before dinner,
Right.
right? I made an exception with the child who lived with mental illness because I knew that they had worked really hard all through the school day just to stay on task, to manage themselves at school, and that giving them some food would help their brain. It wasn't good food,
Right.
but sorry, McDonald's, but that would give them some fuel to be able to regulate themselves to get through the night. And I knew it would be easier on me.
Right. Because at that point, it's like, do I need World War III or do I need that?
I got to feed other
Yeah.
kids. I've got to feed a family. I've got to go home and get laundry done. In my family, my husband does the laundry, but I've got to go home and do other
Right.
things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so these are very nuanced, difficult challenges that parents who parent teens with mental health and mental illness,
Yeah.
I want to make sure that the
Yeah.
distinction, and really require some support, like a support group. The best thing I ever did was take a family to family course through NAMI,
Oh, yeah.
but hands down, better than any graduate school course I had, and I mean that. And talking to other parents who've lived through this, and then getting for my own post traumatic stress disorder and my own anxiety some professional psychotherapy,
Sure.
right? And some support. And I also think for couples, if it's two people trying to parent, the propensity for divorce is very high because usually people don't start off on the same page.
Sure.
One is a little firmer, one is a little willing to give it some time, and hopefully they come to a place of some consensus, or mutual understanding. But that will take a lot of conversations among the parents, but also it may take some professional help as
Sure.
well,
Most
right?
definitely. This is such a
So,
complex situation, and there's so many facets. So, you know, um, I think the thing to stress most is don't go it alone. If
no,
someone is judging
absolutely
you,
not.
find somebody else and turn to NAMI. Now
Yep,
that course, hands down,
yep.
I have not heard one negative thing about it. So definitely tap into that. So remember, you can change your thoughts, discover your potential, and transform your life by focusing on your overall well being. So until next time, continue working on being the best you possible. Bye now.
Bye bye.